Hey, what's up, guys? It's week 4 in the NFL. Hope everyone's enjoyed the first 3 weeks, and hopefully the lineup videos have helped you identify some good plays and made you a little bit of cash. If not, hopefully they have at least helped you understand some of the process of building, and you can get on the right track here as we get to NFL week 4. So with that, let's start setting a lineup. We're going to knock out our quarterback, and I don't think that it's going to come to any surprise here. As much as I like Aaron Rodgers, and I think that he's a fantastic play, I did write him up in the analysis this week. We're going to scroll down a little bit, and we are going to grab Tyrod Taylor as our quarterback for $5,800. And like I said, I do think that Rodgers is probably consistently going to be, without a doubt, the safest quarterback play and almost always worth paying up for. But with Tyrod's price as low as it is, I don't think that we need to pay up for it this week. Tyrod and Rodgers are both very efficient, as they both have completion percentages above the 73rd percentile. Rodgers is like 73 point something, like 73.5, and Tyrod is at 74.36. So technically Tyrod has a better completion percentage, and they both stay pretty active, right? Like we've seen Rodgers scramble and stay active in the pocket. He keeps his feet moving. Well, Tyrod has 30 plus yards in each of his last 3 starts with his legs. So I'm by no means comparing him to Rodgers, and if anything, what I've just stated suggests that there should be some regression to Tyrod. I don't think that it happens in week 4 against the Giants. So far through 3 games, the Giants have allowed a league worst 345 passing yards and are giving up 1.7 TDs to opposing teams' quarterbacks. So I think, if you're a Carr fan or looking at McCown, which whatever, in your opinions and projections on him, for me, or, for McCown and Carr, for me, Tyrod Taylor is without a doubt the best dollar per point play at quarterback. I don't want to say in general, because there are definitely some other easier running back and wide receiver plays that we could hit expected value with dollar per point. But at the quarterback position, he definitely comes in as a strong favorite. And the nice thing is he's priced like that on FanDuel as well. So anybody playing over on FanDuel, take a look at him there as well. We're also going to go with another pretty chalky play here at running back. And the nice thing is he's certainly not one of the more expensive backs. He comes in at a very reasonable price of $6,300, and that's Latavius Murray. I don't know if you guys use Football Outsiders or have looked into them, but I've definitely referenced them before, and you've probably seen them referenced in other articles or just thrown around in podcasts and things like that. But Football Outsiders has a stat that they call DAVE, D-A-V-E, and I quote, "Dave is a formula which combines our," as in Football Outsiders, "preseason projection with current DVOA and to get a more accurate forecast of how a team will play the rest of the season." So it uses some preseason percentage, and I believe they apply a 60% weight to that in terms of preseason. And so as of right now, Chicago ranks dead last in that category. And not only so, and if you're not a big believer in that, you've probably heard DVOA thrown around. They rank 31st worst in rush DVOA. So just against opposing teams' running backs, they were 31st worst in the league. And Oakland has a healthy team total of 24 points. While they're on the road, they are still 3-point favorites to win. So that's nice to see. Chicago's giving up an average of 112 yards on the ground and 21 fantasy points to opposing teams' running backs. And when I throw that out there, it's 21 points to opposing teams' running backs. So let's say it was a Jeremy Hill, Gio Bernard split, right? Well, the nice thing with Latavius Murray is he not only gets a plus matchup, but he also consumes so much of his team's total touches. He ran 8 carries inside the opponent's 10. So far, he's ran 8 carries inside the opponent's 10-yard line and sees 75% of his team's total market share in carries and 23% of his team's market share in red zone touches. It's the perfect combination of matchup, skill, opportunity. It all comes to play, and then that price point is just like icing on the cake. So we got Lat Murray there as our running back one. This is 4 weeks in a row, and it's working out. So hopefully it continues to work out in our favor. But we're going to go with Larry Fitzgerald at a still very suppressed price point for what he's been doing at $6,500. I'm not huge into the player versus team over career, things like that. But if you are into that, Adam Pfeiffer wrote up in his week 4 column, and I quote, or in his thumbs up, thumbs down column, and I quote from Adam: "I like this matchup with the Rams, a team that has historically struggled against opposing number 1 receivers, but especially Fitzgerald in particular. Over the last 2 years, he's caught 36 balls for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns against St. Louis." So take that with a grain of salt, take it for what it's worth, but I think that's a pretty big outlier. And I think that that says something about what he, as a slot receiver, so he does line up 60% of the time in the slot, and I think he's going to cause quite a mismatch for 5'8" LaMarcus Joyner. So he's still under 7K. I think this is the last week that we see that. So starting next week, we could certainly be, depending on his price point, if he's still putting up wide receiver 1 numbers, like literally like second or third best numbers in the league right now, depending on your league's PPR scoring format. But I get, you got to lock him in at $6,500. It's easy. The other running back that we're going to go here, and we do need to still see and hear just a little bit of news on Andrew Luck, because I think he drastically changes his entire team's outlook. I mean, when Peyton Manning was on the Colts playoff team with 3 other quarterbacks that are not named Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning, the Colts were not a playoff team. So, and then, when they got Andrew Luck, they were a playoff team again. So he's drastically changing the weapons around them. And I still think that they're skilled and talented player. Whatever. I'm going to shut up. Anyways, just be on the lookout for Andrew Luck's status. But that running back is Frank Gore. And it's a fantastic price point, $4,800. $4,700. I misspoke there. $4,700 for Frank Gore against Jacksonville. And really, after Latavius Murray, the running back spot gets a little iffy for me. There's some great plays, but it really does get a little bit iffy for me. The Colts are huge home favorites at 10-point favorites right now, and have the highest projected team total of the week at 29 points. Gore comes in as the 22nd cheapest running back on DraftKings. He's like 15th or 16th on FanDuel. And he gets a Jacksonville defense that ranks 21st in DVOA rush defense. Jacksonville has also given up an average of 32.3 fantasy points to opposing teams' running backs, and an average of 1.33 rushing touchdowns through 3 games so far. And that's the key right there to Gore. Because while he's going to grind out 70 to 80 yards, it's those goal line touches that we want with Frank Gore. And it's the fact that Jacksonville has given up a little bit over a touchdown through 3 games per game. So I haven't seen a player prop on it yet, but and this probably depends on Andrew Luck's status, I honestly think that his prop will open up around 150 to score on Sunday. So it'll be a 150 favorite to find the end zone. I think last week he was a 138 or something along those lines. Don't quote me on that. But I think that he opens up around 150 to find the end zone. So Frank Gore for our second running back there. Tell you what, let's jump down to our tight end spot, and we're going to go, this is just the chalk of chalk. Greg Olsen, he's safe. And that's really all that there is to it. There's no Gronk, so you don't have to worry about paying up and fitting in other guys. I think while we did see some inflation in his price tag, I still think that it's more than reasonable for his skill set. I don't blame you if everything looks good in the Washington-Philadelphia game that you go with Jordan Reed. I think that's a great play at $4,400 or $4,500 on DraftKings, and definitely opens up some salary cap space for you to work in Julio Jones. So I think that's a fantastic price point for Reed. But Greg Olsen, well, I wouldn't expect, 2 TDs every week, but I honestly think that you can expect, and this is what, he was projected for in the preseason and things of that nature. I think you can expect close to 11 targets a game, and he caught 8 balls last week for 130 some odd yards, and it was 2 TDs that really sealed the deal. He's averaging 11 targets per game, and that's what you're paying for. You're paying for those targets. Opportunity can far outweigh talent, and the nice thing is just like Latavius Murray, Olsen has the talent and the opportunity. So it's just a really nice price play there at $5,400. He speaking of the talent, he had a 70% catch rate in 2014. So I mean that's a pretty damn good catch rate, and he's consuming close to 30% of his team's targets. We have Olsen projected for 15.5 PPR points, and that's without a touchdown. So, and that's also without a DraftKings bonus if he reaches over 100 yards. I'm paying for that all day at $5,400 at a tight end spot where there's no Gronk. Reed looks iffy, so then you're looking at Kelsey and Rudolph, things like that. I think you go Olsen and you don't look back. Let's knock our defense out of the way here, and we're gonna play with this a little bit more, but I'm gonna grab the Bengals defense here at $28. They are playing Kansas City, who's only projected to have a team total of 22 points. They're playing in Cincinnati, and I think that pairing the Bengals defense with Giovanni Bernard, side note, is a great way to go. And I think Giovanni Bernard is an excellent tournament play. Not a lot of industries talk on him, but he is starting to see more of the touches in Cincinnati. So we got our Bengals at our DST here with a side note on Giovanni Bernard. Let's see. We got 2 wide receivers and a flex spot to fill. Let's fill one of those wide receiver spots. We're going to do that with Randall Cobb. $7,400. And I think depending on the tight end that you go with, and especially depending on the quarterback that you go with, you can get Cobb and Julio Jones in the same lineup. We will not be doing that in this lineup, but I will show you a way to work that in, but you can certainly do it. It's 100% possible. And while I like Ty Montgomery and Richard Rodgers as well, and I think that Richard Rodgers is a great way to get a cheap target and a cheap player and a high expected total, team total for the Packers, I want to target Cobb. Aaron Rodgers targets his number 1 receiver 30% of the time, and I'm going to say this another 3 times. Cobb is an easy cash game play. Green Bay has a projected team total of 28.5 points and are 10-point favorites. They get a defense that's allowed an average of 44.5 points to opposing teams' wide receivers through 3 games. And in terms of like a dollar per point value, Cobb ranks as one of the best wide receivers. And even though he's expensive, right, you don't have to find good dollar per point or good value at a $5,400 wide receiver. They can certainly be an underpriced guy like the way Larry Fitzgerald has been the past 3 weeks, and honestly still a little underpriced in my opinion this week. Cobb also ranks right up there with AJ Green in terms of fantasy point per snap, as he's scored in 4 of his 6 red zone targets this season. So not much else to say there. So we've got a wide receiver and a flex. Let's go fill our other wide receiver spot. And I just hinted to him a second ago, but it's AJ Green, and I'm genuinely going to keep this short and sweet. The Bengals have a projected team total of 24 points. This price is asinine. It is far too low. He came in at $8,100 on DraftKings in week 1. Oh no, I was way off. $7,800 against Oakland. Dipped to 75, dipped to 72, and that's where we saw a fantastic increase in performance and expected value on the $7,200 price point. I think we're still getting that with the $7,600 price point here. So go with AJ Green, and we've got to lock up our flex now, and that is going to be Carlos Williams, which we get to scroll all the way down and grab him. Oops, I gotta spell his name appropriately. At $3,400. This is exploiting a salary and an injury situation with LaShawn McCoy on the shelf. And that's what we need to do in TFS. He's going to see full-time work with McCoy. And McCoy is consuming just over 45% of the team's total market share in touches. So when you disperse that and you give the bulk of that to Carlos Williams, this is a no-brainer chalk cash game play. The nice thing is if he's a full bust and hits 4.5 DraftKings points, chances are 50% of the field owns this dude, and it's not going to kill you. So that's the other thing to consider here. But it's a chalk cash gameplay. And Buffalo's ranks third in the league behind Washington and San Francisco for most offensive rush plays called, and they've called 96. They have an implied team total of 26 points, and they're 6-point home favorites. So game script is more than in Carlos's favor. And I've got him projected at 19 total touches, or 19 and a half total touches, with just over 2 receptions, projected receptions for him. The Giants have allowed an average of 33 points and haven't allowed an average of 9 receptions to opposing teams' running backs through 3 weeks. So I think just like Latavius Murray, the only reason that you fade Carlos Williams is if you're setting a millionaire maker lineup, you're firing a single bullet, and it's a pure percentage and ownership thing. And you're just like, I'm going to 100% fade a guy who's going to be 35-40% owned in a huge tournament like that. I'm just going to fade him. I do not think that you fade Carlos Williams. Even if he's poor, comes out as a poor performance, you're still going to be okay in some of your head-to-heads and double-ups as well. So that's what we've got for week 4. Fun week with all the mid-priced running backs, allowing us to work in who I consider, and the numbers also consider, probably 3 of the best, 6 receivers in the leagues right now in terms of PPR scoring. I think you've got like Travis Benjamin probably inflating that a little bit up there, and like maybe that Steve Smith performance, but all of these guys, this is a fantastic wide receiver core. So there's a lot of people out there that are going to want to work in Julio Jones, and I think that you can do that. So we're going to play around with this just a little bit. So we're going to get off AJ Green here. We're going to get off Greg Olsen. And at the tight end spot, we're going to go to a guy that I touched on earlier, and that is Richard Rodgers, and that gives us a ton of salary to work with here. We've now got 10,000. Julio's just over 9. So that still leaves us with $1,300. So we go to another chalk play here at the defense, and we'll go to the Seahawks, and we now have $400 to work with. So if you're not a fan of Frank Gore, we've got a little bit over $5,100 here at our running back spot. While I don't think that Melvin Gordon is an appropriate cash game play, he is probably one of my favorite GPP plays. Eventually it's going to happen. Like, there was a 50-ish yard run that he should have had straight to the house, and he got ankle tackled, or like just a thigh tackle. Like, it was brutal. He really should have had it, but that's going to happen for Melvin Gordon. He's not seeing a whole lot of second half touches because the Chargers are throwing from behind so much, are playing from behind so much. So hopefully a second half touches increase this week as well. But anyways, I think that you could look to Giovanni Bernard in cash games. The matchup is not ideal, as Kansas City does really have a defense that funnels for passes. Is not so much ideal to run against. So, but anyways, I just kind of want to show you what you can do if you want to get some Julio Jones exposure in there. It's pretty much just a punt at tight end, and it does allow you to work in Seattle. And then you do need to work around your running back a little bit. I don't want to leave, $400 on the table, but if you're happy with Gore in there and you do like it, you could certainly leave it like that as well. I would like to maximize the remaining salary just a little bit more. I usually don't mind leaving $100, $200 on the table, but chances are you could eat up that $400 and utilize it. So with that said, guys, I hope that everyone runs well in week 4, and I will see you guys in week 5. Enjoy the games.